what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 4th episode of The Juice. I'm your host, Johnna Orange, and I'm joined here today with an old school guest. But before I introduce this guest, make sure you guys go tune into last episode. I had Annegret Aussie on, and we talked about her career as a women's basketball player and how she came to the States. So make sure you guys go and tune into that. Now, this one's a very special guest, not only in the sports world, but in my world too. I go way back with this guest, counting about 22 years. This guest was a running back on the 1977 to 1982 team. He basically set the foundation for names like Terry Miller and even Barry Sanders. And even though he didn't live out his NFL dreams, he's still doing great. He resides in Tulsa, and he's doing big things in life. Ladies and gentlemen, Vincent Orange. How you feeling today?
I feel great.
Feel great?
Yeah,
good.
great.
So let's get to the basics. So how did you start playing football?
Well, I actually started playing organized football in the 7th grade. I went to junior high school in Tulsa, to Roosevelt Junior High School, and ironically, I started off as a right tackle on offense, and in 7th grade because I was one of the bigger players. So, 2 games left to go in the season. We were having a difficult day at practice, so the coaches decided to run us as a form of discipline. And that was when they found out that I was the fastest kid on the team, even though I was the biggest team. So from that day on, I became a running back. And then from there, I played through junior high, went to high school at Webster High School, and went on to Oklahoma State.
Nice. So what made you realize you wanted to play in college?
Probably the thing that really stuck in my mind, I was at the 1974 Oklahoma All-State game, and I was just observing, and I was a pretty good football player in the 10th grade at Webster, and I remember watching the All-State game at Tulsa at Skelly Stadium. It's a TU stadium now called Chapman, but and I remember watching players like J.C. Watts and Jimmy Allen in that game, and I sort of had an epiphany when I thought that if I worked hard enough, I could make the All-State team. So it became a personal goal for me to be an All-Stater that night. And from that point on, between my track as a sprinter in track and my play point guard in basketball, things just sort of worked out. But I really decided that I wanted to strive to be an elite level football player that night.
Wow. So you were on the team with Jim Stanley and Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Both of them were your coaches, right?
Yep. If I was recruited out of high school, by about 25 schools, mostly in the Southwest Conference and the Big 8 Conference at that time. And Coach Jim Stanley was the head coach at OSU, and I almost went to the University of Arkansas to play for Lou Holtz and Monty Kiffin, but I decided to go to OSU because Terry Miller came to my house on a recruiting trip, and he said to me, "We need you. You have a chance to start as a true freshman." And Terry had finished that year behind Tony Dorsett in the Heisman race. So here I am, a 17-year-old kid. I've got Terry Miller, a Heisman candidate, saying that, and this is not the coach, this is Terry saying, "I've seen you play, I've seen you run track, and you can start." And that was all I needed. So I decided to come to Oklahoma State, and that dream happened. I actually started as a true freshman with Terry, and it was quite a dream.
So there was no question that you wanted to come to Oklahoma State?
No, early on, there were schools like University of Colorado, Arkansas, SMU was really good at that time in Southwest Conference, Arizona State, some of the big schools, Kansas State. I liked Oklahoma State, but I really wasn't really sure that's where I was going to go. University of Oklahoma did not recruit me very hard out of high school until one day Larry Lacewell and Scott Hill showed up at my high school in my history class, And there had been a rumor that I only weighed 168 pounds, so that's why they didn't recruit me. So they get me out of class. It's so funny. I get out of history class, and I go down, and they put me on the scale, and this was in the spring of my senior year. I was running track. I was a 9'8", 9'7", 9'8", 100-yard sprinter, and that day they got me out of class. I weighed 213. So they started recruiting me at that time, and Larry Lacewell said to me, I looked like a miniature Lucia Selman. Lucia Selman was an All-American nose tackle, so I know I wasn't going to OU to be a nose tackle.
Yeah.
But that was the extent of OU. Barry Switzer and I had a running joke through the years that I should have been a Sooner. They waited too long, and so everyone liked the Sooners, and I liked the Cowboys, but this worked out perfectly for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you chose the right school, obviously. Last name Orange. Did you ever get any heckling about your last name or fans just yelling at you?
That was always a big deal. You know, it was just, everyone just said, you had to go to Oklahoma State, your name is Orange. I loved it back when I first got here, and one side of the crowd would say Orange and the other would say Power. Orange, Power, that was a big deal. But it was a good, it was really a good selling point. It was a good talking point, you know, with the name Orange, and that was such a unique last name. But it seemed to work out very well for me. But I enjoyed the atmosphere of the games.
So you going back to your recruitment stage, right? Mm-hmm. Did coaches come to the house back in the late 70s still, or how was the recruitment process for football?
At that time, you could have 7 official visits. Okay, and that was in-person visits. Now, your junior year, you could start receiving correspondence, phone calls. It was much stricter at that time, but they were allowed to come to your home, which we did, and that was really it was really an awkward feeling, because when these coaches start recruiting you, you're conditioned to always respect your coach, you know, and your coach was someone important. And now you got these coaches that you've seen on television. They're sitting in your living room. They're with your family. They want you. And I remember the very first visit that I had at our home was from Kansas State, which was the program was really struggling, and they really needed some help. So they came first. And they had a head coach by the name of Ellis Rainsberger, and he came to the house with Coach Bob Weber, and really got to know those guys good. But I went to Kansas State. It was on my first visit. It was also the first time I ever flew in an airplane, and my very first time. So went to Kansas State, went to Manhattan, Kansas, and it was a nice experience, but it was really difficult to make a decision. So you got all these coaches. It's a lot of pressure on young people, because you're not used to telling someone who really wants your services. You're not conditioned on how to say no. And so that was very difficult, but I had several coaches, of course, Coach Stanley and some of the other coaches that recruited me. And then you go on these recruiting trips, and they connect you socially with what they think would be appealing to you. So you have a host and that sort of thing. And so we had all that at Oklahoma State. It was a great process to go through, and you just get used to telling people no. And the day that I signed with Oklahoma State, it boiled down between Arkansas and Oklahoma State, and I had exceeded the national signing date because I couldn't make up my mind. And I remember driving up to Webster High School from home, and when I got out in the parking lot, there was the OSU coach that was recruiting me, Gene Henderson, and he followed me. I didn't even know he was following me. He followed me to school. And when I got out, he goes, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Coach, I'm coming to Oklahoma State." He says, "Well, you know, Coach Kiffin's going to be here in a little while, and he's going to try to change your mind." I said, "I know, Coach. I know what I'm going to do." And Coach Monty Kiffin, who was the father of Lane Kiffin, who's the head coach at Ole Miss now, just a wonderful guy. I mean, I tell you what, it was hard to tell him no. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame coach, but you know, we got through it. But it was a lot of stress. You know, it was a lot of stress for that age and that stage in my life. Yeah. But it was also a wonderful experience to be for someone to want your services and see the potential in you. So.
Yeah. Well, after this, y'all, we're going to talk about all things NIL and social media, so make sure you guys stay tuned. What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Juice. Here with Vincent Orange. You might know about NIL, right? And the benefits that it's having on athletes. So how do you feel about athletes being able to get paid now when, you know, you guys didn't have that opportunity?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that something was done to help student athletes to receive some assistance and some financial, because I think one of the things during my era that prompted a behavior and actions that were illegal and non-compliant was the fact that there were so many athletes who really were serious about class, serious about their sports. And during the time I played, if you were a full scholarship athlete, which in my case I was, you were not allowed to have a job during the school year because the NCAA considered you to be overaided. You also could not apply for grants such as the BEOG, Basic Education Opportunity Grants, and Pell Grants, because they said since you're getting a full scholarship, then you would be overaided and it would be fair. And it was very difficult. And there were many of my teammates who lived in states far away that could not go home during breaks. I don't know how many teammates that I took home with me during the course of the year that they became part of our extended family. And the guys that were here with me Saturday, Ernest Anderson and Greg Hill, those were two guys from Orange, Texas. Sometimes they couldn't make it to Orange, so they didn't go to Orange, Texas. They went to Grace Orange's house and ate, okay? Yeah. So my mom kind of became a mom to a lot of the teammates, Dexter Manley, John Corker, Ricky Young, all of those guys were part of my extended family because there was no money. There was no way to get money legally. So you had people that loved the program, loved the players, that got to know us, and they wanted to help. Yeah. And when they helped, they were breaking rules, and that caused the program to suffer because they were trying to help. So NIL to me is a great way to give athletes an opportunity, but like anything else, there are positives and there's negatives. Yeah. And one thing that I see from a negative standpoint can be you put pressure on young people and they have money waved at them, and they sometimes forego the importance of getting the education. Yeah. If you talking to a kid about an opportunity to have a multi-million-dollar deal, or focus on your college, or change, because when you change colleges, when you change schools, it's like changing jobs. There's some benefits, and then there's some liabilities. So I'm glad they're doing it. I hope they can figure out a way to make it more equitable for the players who are not necessarily star athletes or well-known athletes. Don't forget about the person that's really trying to do things the right way. Like any other system, it's never going to be perfect. But I am happy for these kids. I feel a strain for coaches, because you're coaching kids and on 1 minute you think you've got a kid and they're being outbidded for their services. It's like in the regular employment. When you have someone that's a value-added component of your organization, then you have recruiters that's going to come in to try to outbid you for them. Yeah. So it's mixed emotions. Overall, I think it's a great thing, and I'm happy that progress has been made. I sometimes wonder what it would have been like if we'd have had that in place. Yeah. But I think over time they had to come up with a system that works, and nothing's perfect. There's a lot of positives and negatives. I just hope that the kids remember to get your education. Yeah. Either get it now or get it later. You're going to need it because life changes.
Yes.
And when, that's.
And we talked about, you said overbidding, and that kind of leads me into my next portion, the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. That wasn't around whenever you were in school. No. How do you think that would have impacted?
I think that there would have been a lot of great players. There's a couple of parts of that. There were great players that they were regional. So players that played when I was in school, that was called the Pac-8 or the Pac-10, USC, UCLA. You didn't see those players on television in this part of the country unless it was in a bowl game. So transferring and being able to display your talents and that sort of thing was limited. You didn't have a gazillion college football games on during the course of the week. There were no Tuesday night ESPN and Thursday night and Friday and Sunday nights. Those were non-existent. So we kind of went on overload. But the marketing part of that, players get to display their talents. So now, during our time frame, you know, we played in the Big 8 conference, and then there was not enough bowl games. There was no such thing as you win 6 games and you're bowl eligible. Yeah. You know, there was no such thing as bowl eligible. Wow. It's just because you won 6 games. So it's expanded. The transfer portal, I think the perceived loyalty, there is a loyalty. There was never a player who wasn't injured that wasn't going to play in the bowl game. Okay, that was just unheard of. But the culture has changed. We're smarter. There are players that got hurt in bowl games who were a shoe-in to the NFL, and then they lost their opportunity. So you got to weigh all of that stuff in. And I think one thing I'll say about Coach Gundy has been very objective with his players. I know there was a couple of players. I was a receiver a couple of years ago. He went ahead and let him play in the game, but he didn't play him the whole game. I forget his name, but he was a star receiver. And so I think you've got to relate to the players and even the coaches, and everyone's more transparent with that now. Yeah. But it's just a different game, and there's things I miss about the old way. And a lot of that has to do with loyalty, and a lot of that has to do with school spirit and that sort of thing. But there's things out there now that's really encouraging our kids. We just gotta help them remember, get the education. You're going to need it.
So do you think the transfer portal has kind of like diverted people from actually getting into the school spirit, like you said?
I think it hasn't diverted them from getting into school spirit, but it's caused them to shift gears. I think the players, there was a couple of players that played at Oklahoma State, and then one in particular last year or so transferred to OU. Well, I think when that player was here, I think he was all in for OSU. But I think that he realized he had a better opportunity at OU. For me, that would have been a real challenge because I would have had to play my old teammates. And we were just all close. You know, we were family. But I think that wherever people are planted, they are bloomed. And they bloom where they're planted. They're committed to that school for the most part. But it's just hard. It's just hard to imagine 1 year I'm playing for a school, my school, and the next year I'm playing against my school on a team in our same conference. I can't. I would probably have to get some therapy to try to overcome the stress and the nervousness and feeling bad about that. When I was in 8th grade at Roosevelt Junior High, and our family moved to West Tulsa, so I was changing schools and I was going to another school, and I remember all that we went through in the 7th and 8th grade, and they were talking junior high. I go to 9th grade, I'm at a whole new school, and we play my old school, and my old school was not as good as it had been when I was there, and a couple other people had left, and we just beat them like a drum. And I remember going home and crying, just thinking, man, I beat up my buddies, you know. Yeah. That's just a game. So that's how the world was then. Now those players are like, hey, look, you know, hate to do it. It's just a business move, man, you know. Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit, talk a little more personal. So, well, personal opinion. Whenever you played, what was your favorite uniform combo?
My favorite uniform combo when I played was my freshman and sophomore year. We would wear our white jerseys with a burnt orange, and we had burnt orange pants with a white stripe on the side, and our helmets were burnt orange. I just thought that was the coolest look because it was that, and it wasn't an orange like anything we have now. It was really a burnt orange. The helmet was burnt orange, And I saw it when I was here recently, I saw the display of helmets. I actually did not see that helmet that was on display. The burnt orange helmet from 1976 and 1977 and 8. I didn't see it on display, but I thought that was the coolest helmet. But I liked it when we wore the burnt orange pants and the white shirt. In 1978, we played against Florida State in Tallahassee, and we wore those. It was on a Saturday night game, and it was regionally televised, and we wore those. And when I looked at the playback, I just thought, man, how cool do we look out there?
Yeah.
You know, so that was my favorite combination.
Okay.
And then we changed that and got rid of the orange pants the next year, which I don't understand why, but we did.
It wasn't a knock on Texas, was it? Because you said it was burnt orange.
It was burnt orange.
So it wasn't like, were y'all kind of knocking on Texas a little bit?
No, not really, because we didn't play Texas then. Texas was in the Southwest Conference, and so it was really not that. It was just that was it was a decision that was made, and we changed and just went to the white pants, and but those were my favorite. That was my favorite uniforms, and we wore what was called tearaway jerseys. Tearaway jerseys, and so I was number 48. So we played. I'd have like 10 jerseys. And the tearaways was when the guy tried to tackle you and the jersey would tear, so they couldn't tackle you. And so you have to come out of the game 2 or 3 times to get a new jersey on, you know.
Oh, wow.
That was a fad for a while. And when I remember wearing those burnt orange uniforms and then going through one game, I went through like 6 jerseys,
wow.
You know,
Yeah.
so just a different game, you know. And the other thing then is we didn't throw the ball as much. It was not uncommon for most teams to throw 12 or 13 passes a game. You ran the ball, and so that's.
So as a running back, you were getting the work in.
Yeah.
Most memorable moment on the field.
1977. I'm a freshman. We're playing in Lawrence, Kansas, and it's raining. Kansas is ranked in the top 15, I believe. They had a couple of future NFL players, Hall of Famers, and we switched that week and ran the I. We've been running the veer, the pro set. Terry Miller and I were starting running backs, and we changed and we went to the I, which means that I was going to line up at fullback, and my main job that game was going to be to take on the corner support. So that we could get Terry outside. It's raining, and I scored the first touchdown of that game. And I jump over it. It was about a 7 or 8 yard touchdown. And the rest of that game, I'm like a battering ram. It's also the game that Terry Miller broke Joe Washington's career Big 8 rushing record. So there was a lot of things that was on the line. I was a 17-year-old freshman. And in that game, I had like 28 knockdown blocks, and I felt good because Terry broke the record. We beat Kansas. The game was regionally televised. It was in the rain. It was one of my better games, especially early in my career. But I remember in the locker room, I had never been part of a celebration like that. It was just unreal. And, you know, you got all these All-Americans on your team and you got all that. I'm a freshman, so I'm just kind of standing back. And then I got recognized in the locker room, and I actually got the game ball. And wow. Terry set the record, but I got the game ball. We still tease each other about that.
Yeah.
That was one of the high points in my career.
Amazing. Well, that's all the time we have for now. But would you look into this camera behind me and say, I'm Vincent Orange, and this has been The Juice.
Hello, I am Vincent Orange, and this has been The Juice.
Okay, we're good. Boom.
Oh, I got to hit record.
Whatever. Oh my gosh.